Washington Township Board of Supervisors meeting. We all please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. All of our professionals are here. Everyone else except Tom is along with absent. Is there anyone besides our secretary taking the meeting?
Yes, I am Bill Pierce, 41 Lineside Road.
Barbara Dunn, 774.
Tara Crispin, Old Route 100.
And I'd like to announce that we have an executive session tonight before this meeting. The topics were litigation and personnel matter. No special requests, so public comment. Barbara Dunn.
I just wanted to give feedback on the data center. So I did everything. I don't want to talk about everything, but I'll just give the highlights. But there's a lot of information that I got from, don't laugh, AI.
No, it's fine. No, I mean, this is why we have the ordinance in draft form, and we have the Board of Supervisors review it, and we have the Planning Commission review it, so that we can have public input before we put it in final form and before we would advertise it, so that everybody's had a chance to discuss it. I mean, in the end, maybe you agree with some things, don't agree with others, but we're very much open to public comment and discussion, and this is the time for it. So I definitely appreciate thoughtful research on these things, and if you would like to give the highlights.
Yes, I'll just hit on the highlights. The minimum size lot, although it was common in the beginning to say 3 acres was minimum, but the common acreage now is 10 to 40. Because of the noise and the sound barriers that need to be built for the generators and the frontage that needs to happen, the fencing and all of that stuff now does require at least a minimum of 10 acres, if not more.
Well, that also depends on the size of the data center. Some data centers are, to use a common word, mega data centers that would require a larger lot size. Others, I mean, you're not required to zone for every business model of it. But I agree that some have 3-acre lot sizes, and I have seen some with 10-acre lot size minimums in researching these ordinances.
Okay, yeah. I think it has to do with all the equipment that's going to be needed to support that data center. That's the only reason why, and I did go through and explain what that was. Some of the, power and connectivity with the 1-to-1 ratio and all of that, megawatts, and I just didn't have time to dive into that. The second thing was the minimum building setback for sensitive receptors. So now the 500 feet does align with the other townships. However, there's some additional verbiage that needs to be added to that for major highways, railroads even, hazardous plants. So there is very specific things that need to be considered for that. Then we have the accessory use. So the setup, maintenance, and controls of the generators are extremely loud. Everyone knows that. But to support a data center and all of the equipment, maybe we should think about, sound barriers and how they're installed and what kind of foundations they're on. They have rubber foundations. I mean, that could all be decided in your ordinance and not make it so easy for people to come in and say, oh, well, it wasn't specified, we can do however way we want. I think if we make it very stringent, that, you know, people are going to know it's gonna cost them money, and no shortcuts can be taken, to do that.
And the idea is, the idea isn't to make it difficult for a data center to locate or any use to locate here. It's not a matter of trying to keep it out. It's a matter of making sure that you don't have bad impacts on the township residents. It's not about making it difficult on any kind of use. That's not something that we would want to do. All legitimate uses have to be planned for, and that includes data centers. But that doesn't mean that they should be able to pollute, noise pollution, light pollution, interference with residential and other commercial uses.
Understood, understood. The other thing is the electronic waste disposal. So, it's absolutely a necessity that that be tracked with evidence of that waste disposal, and failure to comply, there should be some kind of litigation means or fines or something that says, if you don't comply, this is what's gonna happen. I know all too well what happens with electronic equipment in data centers. So that, they only last 3 to 5 years, and then they get replaced. Well, how is that being disposed of? I think we just need to elaborate a little bit on that.
And that's fine. There are already regulations in place, state regulations on electronic waste disposal. One thing we do have in here, and I saw the word decommissioning in your materials.
Right.
We do have in there decommissioning security requirement and requirements for decommissioning of the center. And that financial security should include proper disposal of equipment. But I think what you're going is a step further, which is proper disposal or some certification of disposal, proper disposal of electronic waste, not just putting it out in the trash or burying it in the backyard.
Exactly, yeah. And let's see what else I have here. Utility supply and equipment related to electrical infrastructure. So it should also support growth. It's evident that they will try to grow their data center. They typically will only do minimum, and with the thought process of growing it, so we need to consider that as well.
Yeah, I mean, any business will grow, and we want it to, but again, that needs to be accommodated, and that's something we can look at.
And really, the last point here was, any system designed for cooling and operation of the facility, electricity, water, and other means shall be adequate and not negatively impact the surrounding regions. So, words like robust and redundant, mechanical infrastructure, and combining air-based things like that should be specified, I think, and not bare minimum requirements. Bare minimum will get us in trouble. That's it. That's
Yeah,
all
I
have to
mean,
say
we do
about that.
have, for example, in our draft ordinance, that water must be, that water for cooling is to be a closed loop recycling system, and that water for other than for potable water, drinking water uses, needs to be provided for so that it doesn't negatively impact the water supply of surrounding residents.
Yes.
And also a power rate impact study would be a part of it as well.
Yeah, I saw this self-sufficient water supply, and,
Yes.
they have to supply that, yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Do you have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Dan, for planning commission, we should we should
Consider
include
that.
this. We should include this and
That's
and
fine.
maybe other things, if anyone else is here to talk about data centers, or I'll keep some notes as to some.
Yeah,
of
so
those.
Lisa maybe can copy us with that, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
And then Barb, can I ask you another couple questions? You've done a lot of looking into things. Have you looked into, there's been a couple in the news lately, Upper Saucon?
I saw it, I
Did you
just
see it, Jen?
actually saw
I
it.
did.
They're being very strict, I forget what their things were, but
I
one of
think-
them was conditional use, I think. and so-
Yeah, I think this would be either conditional use or special exception.
Okay.
I think they're the ones that are having to go back and modify their ordinance. I think it was them, I'm not sure, because of the plans that they're receiving for data centers, and they didn't quite cover it in their ordinance, so they're going back. So that's, I think that was them, but I'm not sure.
It
But
could
I'll-
be, it
I'll
could
take
be
a look.
them or East Vincent Chester County is another one where there have been hearings on a data
Up in the
center.
White Walls and,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch up north of here. So, okay. And then my other question, did you see the headlines about Phillipsburg?
No, I did not.
Did you see, Jim?
Phillipsburg.
Phillipsburg, New Jersey? They're banning them outright.
Well,
That's what they say. So
Ban-
can you tell, what's the rest of the story?
The rest of the story is they're across the state line in New Jersey and they may have different laws about exclusionary zoning.
Okay.
I don't know, I know that New Jersey real estate law, I'm not licensed in New Jersey. I know that New Jersey real estate law is very different from Pennsylvania's, so I would also assume that their zoning laws may be different and they may have the power under state law to ban certain uses. We don't have that power, but we do have the power to make sure that a use doesn't have severe negative impacts on the surrounding area. And we don't have to zone for every business model. We don't have to zone for every business model of a data center, every size of a data center. We just have to provide for reasonable use for a use that is lawful, and it is a lawful use.
Joan, by the same token, Barbara would be welcome to come to the planning commission meeting and present her
Absolutely, 7 o'clock on
next Thursday, is it?
March 5th.
March 5th, first Thursday, March 5th, so yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Joan, how do you balance the use versus the exclusionary zoning that if you set too many boundaries, you fall into an exclusionary use,
Yes.
and then it becomes a use by right just for the application if they live.
Right,
How do you balance that in building the ordinance?
The way you balance is that the use has to be more than theoretically possible. It has to be it's feasible, and courts are balancing that all the time as to, does this ordinance exclude the use entirely, or does it just not zone for the business model that the owner wants to make the maximum profit? So it is striking a balance. I mean, for example, if you in residential, it's easier. I mean, you can't have just large lot zoning all through your township to keep out townhouses. You can't ban apartments outright, but you also can't do what's called de facto exclusion and make the requirements so difficult that it would be nearly impossible for anybody to put in the use. It would be prohibitively expensive. The land is, the topography of the land where it's allowed doesn't allow this use, or the area is so small. There are a lot of ways that could be exclusionary zoning, or you make the restrictions too tight. In agricultural preservation zoning, you used to see that all the time, where there would be layer upon layer upon layer, net outs for natural features, and a large building envelope required, and it would make it impossible for there to be any houses whatsoever on agricultural land. And the court said, no, you can't do that. You have to allow the reasonable development. And that's more of a fair share, but with commercial, it's somewhat different. But you still, if there is a use that's a lawful use, you have to provide for it somewhere. You're absolutely right that if you do exclude it, the courts can grant what you're putting it where they want it. It's called site-specific relief. So yes, you're right, and it is a balanced court strike.
So is there a consideration for zoning specifically just for data centers then to allow that accommodation to be built only in this zoned area?
Zoning is fitting the use into the right place. When zoning was first developed, it was a case in the United States Supreme Court called Euclid, I think it's Village of Amber versus Euclid Development. And they said, we have zoning, we have these laws, so people don't have the pig in the parlor. And so you can say, for example, that data centers are only allowed in certain districts where they're not going to be up against residential uses, for example. Or you're not going to have it right next to a nursing home or a hospital or a daycare center. You have it zoned the way that it's in a commercial or industrial zone. So yes, that's what zoning is. You can limit it to certain districts. And you can also have for data centers, and this is what we have in the ordinance, what are called performance standards. And you have some of them in here too, where you have to have certain setbacks, you have to have certain buffering, you have to have certain landscaping. In your case, you've added some information on sound barriers. Those kind of stormwater performance standards, if you have a lot of impervious area. All of those are added to make sure that it doesn't have a bad impact on local residents.
Okay, thank you. Dan Stauffer.
I've decided to reserve my comments for a later time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ray Hall.
Yes, this is exactly the topic I wanted to talk about. I'm going to make it a little more personal. I live off of Route 100, old Route 100. G has his property behind mine, and then the data center would be right back there behind his, as far as I understand it.
What is the address, please? What address?
2181, old Route 100. So.
I'd like to know where that is. I'm sorry. Can you?
Okay, let me put it to you this way. I have the home that used to be the old tax collector's home. Do you know where that is?
Wait, Dorothy Kemp was the old tax collector.
No, before that.
Well, she's been
It was the
tax
guy
collector
before
since
that.
the 60s, I think.
No, there was a guy who.
He's like 6
Let me
doors
put it
down
to you this
from.
way. I'm just a few houses down from the housing development.
He's just down for Sugar Maple. He's 6 doors from Gene.
Okay.
Yep, my house is real close to Eschbach.
I've got a question for you.
Okay, thank you for that.
I mean, just so everyone knows, I just confirmed it with our engineer. There is no plan no plan has been submitted for a data center.
Okay.
It is your property where, right next to a zone where data centers would be allowed under this ordinance? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm hearing that they were gonna put it behind his property.
Okay. We're not aware of any plans for a data center. Again, no plans have been submitted. Sue, has anyone approached you? And Romney?
There's some talk about an AI
Right.
data center.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's good to be talking about these things now, and I mean, because, again, we're considering an ordinance so that we are prepared when a plan comes in, but I just wanna let you know that
Okay.
we are not aware of any plans in the works for a data center. Maybe someone has expressed interest, maybe,
All I know is my wife told me that they're talking about putting one in.
okay,
If that were to happen, I'd have to listen to that noise constantly. I wouldn't have a quiet night again. I understand I have the racetrack and I hear some animals occasionally, which I've gotten used to. But the thing of it is my well is only 30 foot into the ground. If that center comes in, they could just dry out my well. Then what happens? Then they'll have to pay public water or put a well in. Or I'll put a well in and then public water will come through and I would have spent all that money for nothing.
well, one of the features of the ordinance as it's drafted is requiring that for cooling, the data center, and that's the major use of water with data centers,
Oh, yeah.
is for cooling of those large servers that are running constantly. That they would be required to use a water recycling, closed loop water recycling system for cooling purposes,
Right.
so that it doesn't draw down water, and that any other, non-potable, non-drinking water use, they would have to provide their own source of water, and so as not to risk drawing down neighboring wells.
Okay.
So that's something that in a data center ordinance absolutely would be addressed, because we know that and the concerns about power would be the prime concerns. And it's a nationwide issue. For those of you who watched the State of the Union Tuesday night,
Yeah, I missed it, I'm afraid.
the president brought up proposing legislation to Congress that would require data centers to provide their own power. Now, I don't know where that gets. It hasn't even, it's not even a bill that's been drafted, it's a concept. But it's something that is a concern nationally. So a lot of municipalities address that concern because of the power needs of data centers. The use is coming. There's no question that the use is coming, and we have to be ready for it to make sure that if it does come to this township, and it can, I don't know whether it would, but it can. They're being proposed around us, that we're ready and making sure that residents are adequately protected. Just like any other use, every use has negative potential impacts.
Right.
Whether you're, I'm right now in a township in the northern part of the county where an intensive agricultural operation is presenting problems for residents. So it can happen anywhere with any use. So the idea is to provide for it so that it's mitigated.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for all the comments.